We ranked #1 on Google and got 8 qualified deals from just 120 website sessions. We beat giants like CXL, HubSpot and Cognism with domain authorities almost 3 times higher than ours. And no, this wasn't luck or with a huge budget. So in this video, I'm going to share the exact framework, everything from building the plan of action, the foundation, crafting out the page, the on-page SEO, the off-page work, building out backlinks, so you can see exactly how we brought in pipeline and revenue within those 67 days. I'll share every tactic so you can see exactly how we outrank those decade-old competitors. You're even going to see under the bonnet with the content we put together, the pages and the analytics to show the results. So if you're a B2B or SaaS company that's tired of competitors outranking you when dream clients are searching for your solution, this one's for you. Let's dive in.
Sam, the money keywords that we want to rank for, or that we were thinking of ranking for, are demand generation course and demand generation program. Now, the reason being is I found there's a bit of search volume around it. And so ideally, Sam, I'd love to appear #1 for that search term. But this isn't something we've ever really targeted before. So I would love to first get your thoughts on these money keywords. Well, what have you got for us?
Yeah. So I was looking at these recently after you shared them with me. So looking at my findings, let's look at my scribbled down Google Docs. So I was looking at demand generation course, looks smart. I also thought demand generation training would probably be smart too. The other keyword, #2, demand generation program. We can dive into this. I've just searched demand generation course. Obviously, I'm in the UK, so the search results might vary a little bit to US or Oz. But what we can see is anyone in the B2B space, if we go under the paid results, Cognism, well-known brand for lead generation, certainly in the UK, and I think they're growing in EU and US. So they've basically built out their currently organic position 1 for demand generation course, but they've actually built out like a free training center with all these demand generation courses, videos, slides. The page itself doesn't have that much written content. It's just access to a lot of modules and articles and guides. So it's quite an information-rich site. The battle we're going to have against Cognism is they're big on SEO. As of the last couple of years, they've invested a ton of resource and cash and hired some decent SEO experts. So that's going to be quite a tough one to go against. And then also CXL. So they're currently positioned organic 2 for demand generation course. Again, well-known. That's specifically well-known in the B2B marketing training. I think they have like a monthly or annual subscription where you can kind of pay to learn different B2B aspects. However, the good thing about this page is it's not been updated in a while. And I did see that this course is now archived. So the page that they're ranking, we might be able to surpass it in the sense that it's not very fresh content. They probably haven't updated it in a long time. They're not that bothered about pushing it. But the only issue we're going to have is that these 2 sites have quite a strong domain rating or domain authority, as they've got a ton of content. They've got a ton of sites linking to them. So that's one issue we're going to have, but we'll look at ways to get around that. So that's like the top 2 rankings. And then we've got HubSpot. Everyone knows HubSpot. Again, theirs is more of a free course. So that's demand generation course. Now, the good thing about this keyword is we can see that there's some intent there. They're more solution-based kind of pages like Cognism have got the free resources. CXL have actually got their paid course, which is now redundant, but we can see the intent there is a paid course of some sort. And then we've got kind of some other pages there from Drifting Online Marketing Institute. And then if I look at my suggested secondary keyword, which is demand generation training, what have we got underneath? Again, the top 2 results are the same. So we've got Cognism and then CXL, and then the ones underneath are slightly different. But that's a good sign. They're both showing the same page. So that means you can probably rank with, once we build out this page and talk about how we build it out, we can probably rank with the same page. But if I look at your other keyword we discussed, which was demand generation program, if we look at what's ranking for we've got an AI instant result there. Interesting. If we've got a demand generation program keyword, it's more information-based results. So for example, Microsoft is a top organic result, talking about what is demand generation. So this is more of an in-depth article answering the question. like the essentials of a demand generation program. And then we've got Gartner, 5 steps to build a demand generation strategy. Cognism's different page, what is demand generation? HubSpot, what is demand generation? So this is more informative based, George, which I don't believe is what we're going for. I mean, do you want to give us a snapshot of what you want to get out of this page?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. We probably should steer away from demand generation program because really we want this to be a solutions page, like a page that actually leads to our program and shows people like this is what our demand generation program is and this is what's in the course, and eventually, push them to sign up if it's something that they're interested in.
Got it. So to set the scene, which I should have asked first, really, this is going to be more of a solution page. We actually want to capture folks that are potentially in market and show them that we've got a course that's going to potentially fix their problems, give them some trust that we're a great organization to help with the demand generation course they want to look at, give them some proof of results and guide them to that product. So with that said, that's the current market. My recommendations against your keywords, like I said there, would be to go for demand generation course and demand generation training, because we can see we can probably get the same 2 keywords ranking with the same page. I'd probably say for now, demand generation program isn't as relevant because that tends to bring up more of an informative based search. And looking at those top 2 organic results, we can see CXL and Cognism, and we can even dive in quickly to show you a bit of a comparison. If I fire up Ahrefs, or Hrefs rather, as it's meant to be pronounced. I always forget.
I've actually never known how it was meant to be pronounced.
Yeah, I only knew that after.
I swapped between Ahrefs and Ahrefs, but yeah.
So if we do a quick comparison, let's have a look here. Cool. So on Ahrefs now, looking at Cognism's domain rating, I mean, they've got a super strong domain rating, 75, which is a strong score out of 100. They've got 30,000 backlinks. They're ranking for nearly 40,000 different organic keywords, and they're getting about 157,000 organic visits each and every month. And then if we look at the second result, cxl.com, again, domain rating of 85, super strong, 125,000 backlinks, ranking for about 48,000 keywords, getting about 57.3 thousand organic visits a month. And then if we've got your website, yeah, so B2B Playbook.com, naturally, as you haven't done a ton of SEO, makes sense. So we've got a domain rating of 8, we've got 83 backlinks, we've got 277 organic keywords ranking, and we get about 105 organic visits roughly per month in all locations. So as we can see, we've not got the easiest of challenges ahead of us based upon our current domain rating, our current link authority, and other factors. But I still think there's a fighting chance if we review these pages, how they're set up, and build a best-in-class page, do some smart SEO, do some smart content, and also build some links directly to this page, which we can dive into in a sec. But hopefully that sets the scene a little bit.
Yeah, it's a David and Goliath story. Let's. I think we've set that up nicely. Fortunately, our website traffic is a little bit better than what Ahrefs has reported. But I mean, look, in terms of the other stats around domain rating and authority, we're certainly up against. So I'm very, very interested to hear, Sam, like how you would approach this. Like, what strategies should we pursue to try and get up there with the likes of CXL and Cognism, so people see us when they search for demand gen course or demand gen training?
So demand generation course, demand generation training, let's say we're going after those main keywords. The first thing I do is probably one of the most simple things. So I literally, if we go back onto, let's search demand generation. So yeah, as we said, Cognism, CXL, top 2 organic spots. I would encourage you, first and foremost, based upon what's ranking here, we've agreed we're going to build some kind of solution page as we want this to be product led. We want folks to potentially sign up to our course or at least show interest in it. So I can imagine we can retarget them with LinkedIn ads or other kinds of ads once they've been on the page and understand that they've been there and they're a potential high intent prospect for us. So with that said, first things foremost, in terms of the page structure, we can see here we've got Cognism's meta title is Demand Generation Playbook - course home. And then they've got, again, Demand Generation Playbook and course written in the meta description. And likewise, CXL have got similar in their meta title, Demand Generation Course, online training at CXL. And again, they're mentioning it in the meta description. So first and foremost, when we're building out this page, starting from the ground up, we've got to bear in mind that we probably want our main keyword within that meta title So in our case, perhaps demand generation course or demand generation training within that title. We could call it something like the ultimate demand generation course, ultimate demand generation training, something along those lines. As long as we've got that main keyword within there, that'll be fine. And then likewise, we want to make sure that's included within that description. I usually recommend you do a bit of some kind of a hook, because we want this to have a nice click-through rate. Because even if we do get it ranking top, it's not to say everyone's going to click it. So perhaps, I don't know if there's like a nice hook, George, that you like to leverage on some of your ads, i.e. if we had the keyword demand generation course and then maybe in brackets like hit your SQL target for 2024. That's something I sometimes like to sneak in these titles.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. No, these are all good things for us to consider. And this is for the title as well, for this SERP result too.
Yeah, that's it for the meta title itself.
Right. Okay. So we'll be limited by like how long we can make it, but really what we're trying to do is get the keywords in and then have something else in there to really increase that click-through rate. So like a hook that's achieved to the outcome that people are really chasing when they're searching for this term. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. So we want to rank for it, but at the same time, we want to make sure it's juicy enough that folks actually click it. So for example, if CXL have got demand generation course and then online training at CXL Institute as their meta title, we could have demand generation course, then in brackets, something like hit your SQL targets 2024, or something that fits within the meta title parameters and at the same time has your keyword in and encourage folks to actually click through because it's enticing enough to have that hook to get them to click on the page. And then likewise, we want to make sure if we can include demand generation course or training within the description with something that makes sense. So maybe it's something like the B2B Playbook. We're helping B2B marketers with our demand generation course to do XYZ. These are the problems we fix. This is the outcome we provide. Just something short and snappy within that description. So again, that's maybe something you can have a thought about, George, and then maybe you can come back to me and we can perhaps review that as the first step. I'm not going to take too much notice for now of the Cognism page because Cognism got such a good domain rating now that they could almost rank for so many keywords just because they've got so much authority behind their site. These days, they could publish an article and it'll probably rank so fast because the site's got so much authority within Google. And most of the page that they've built out that's currently position 1 is kind of media, so it's linking out to other pages. So CXL, which is organic position 2, is a bit of a better example of what we should review. But let's get into that in a sec. So the next thing we want to think about is a quick 10-second interruption. If you're a B2B or SaaS company that's tired of competitors outranking you and you want to start ranking top on Google and AI searches and driving consistent pipeline with organic search, grab a call with me over at breakingb2b.com or hit the first link in the description below. So we've talked about the meta title, which we'll think about. The next thing we want to look at is the heading tag and the hero area. So the top banner area and what's called our H1. So you can only have one heading tag. You should only have one heading tag per page. So within that, again, we want our main target keyword. We could go demand generation course, demand generation training. And what have CXL got here? Become great at demand generation. Again, you'd probably be best guided to watch what this should say, George, but it might be like the only demand generation training that you need for 2024, or finally hit your demand generation goals, or something like that. Something that maybe speaks to the outcome that folks want, but at the same time has our main keyword within it.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
And then a few kind of ground rules as we go down. So one H1 tag, and then one thing to think about is when we're doing other header tags, be it H2, H3, H4, if we can, without keyword stuffing, we ideally want these headings to include our keyword in when it makes sense. So i.e., if we're talking about things like when we're talking about the course benefits or the course program, how the course works, FAQs, if we can weave in demand generation training or demand generation course within those, then that again is useful. Just tells Google this is what the page is about. So that's just some ground rules to consider. So first and foremost, reviewing this page at CXL, again, it's quite a long form page. It's got, in terms of content, it's got just under 3,000 words. So that gives us a guideline. Ideally, we want to do about a similar amount of content, perhaps a little bit more, based upon the fact that your site is lower in domain rating and we're competing against some well-authoritative pages. So give me an idea, George, what did you have in mind for this page? Did you have any preconceptions of how you were going to format your own page?
I mean, look, we do have a page currently for the B2B incubator, but it's not
Okay.
optimized to show this at all. But I imagine I would just have to rework a lot of the information in there. At the moment, the page is very much structured and reflective of the conversations and words that we hear from our dream customers, from what they want the program to be. And most of the traffic that comes from here is probably directed from our LinkedIn, or people who hear about it on the podcast, or people who are on the b2bplaybook.com and see that this is something else that we do. So at the moment, build your demand engine in 12 weeks. Like that's kind of the outcome that we know people are chasing when they come to us.
Yep.
And then there's just an explanation there, which then is all around, we give B2B marketers and small teams a strategy, templates, and tools that they need to drive more revenue for their business. So just explaining further who it's for, what you get, and what the outcome will be. Reviews to build trust. And then we start going into the problems. There's a title there, struggling to drive leads and revenue. And we just call out the things that B2B marketers and small teams really struggle with. And we try and agitate that problem as much as possible. And then we start bridging the gap to a solution where we say, look, your job isn't to get more leads, it's to drive more revenue. And then we're explaining what's wrong with the traditional lead gen model. And then, we build that bridge to say, really what you should be looking at is demand generation. Because demand generation is going to fix your problems. And this is what your life looks like before demand generation. And this is what it looks like after. Some more explanation around the program. We have our session plan with some screenshots there as to what's in the program. Some happy people who are part of the program. The fact that you get a certificate of demand generation as well, reiterating what you get over those 12 weeks. So we've just got some icons just to quickly visualize what people get. FAQs around the program. The application that people need to fill out if they want to apply to join the program. Some reviews and some extended reviews. And finally, a 60-day money-back guarantee. That's what it is currently.
Okay. So the format's good. The only thing is there's a few things to consider. So depending on the traffic that this page gets, we could even use it, but we'd have to change the URL. So something I should have mentioned earlier is right now we've got the b2bplaybook.com /the-b2b incubator. But we ideally want our main focus keyword within that URL itself. So that might be the b2bplaybook.com /demand-generation-training, or it might be demand-generation course. So we want that within the URL itself. Again, that's going to help us. It just makes it a little bit easier to rank and easier for Google to pick it up. So that's one thing to consider. We want it in our meta title, description, and the keyword within the URL itself. So /demand-generation-training. So we could use this page, but it depends how open you are to reformatting it. It might just be easier to take some of the best bits of it and then kind of slice and dice that into a new all singing, all dancing page.
I would prefer to create a new page entirely if possible, because I know this one performs well from us when people are led to it through LinkedIn or other places, because it's very like a user customer centric is how we've tried to build it, but it's probably not overly Google friendly for what we're trying to rank for. So you think maybe building a separate page is okay? Yeah,
let's go for a separate page. Then we can kind of pull the best bits from that, not copy the content over, like tweak the content, tweak the wording, and kind of maybe add some extras into it as well. So if I fire up my screen again, if you end this one, I'll fire up my screen and show you a couple quick things. So let's have a look. If I dive into Hrefs, just looking at the Keyword Explorer, so demand generation training, it's flagging up on Hrefs as an easy to rank keyword. So that's a good start. 0 difficulty out of 100. So that's always nice. And we can see if we scroll down, like we can see Cognism and CXL top 2 results. It says here, I think you had slightly different in terms of potential traffic, but like I say, some tools vary in terms of the overall traffic potential, but it's setting about 80 or so global search volume. But you've got to remember, SEO tools are always working on historic data. So never everything's kind of 100% accurate. And then likewise, if we look up demand generation course, that looks slightly more difficult, but 3 out of 100 in terms of difficulty. Traffic potential, global search volume flagging as 50. And then again, we can see Cognism, same pages, CXL, same pages, ranking top. So that's a good start. We're not going for super competitive keywords. We've got a basis of a page that we can kind of rework, and we know what we're doing in terms of meta title, meta description. We know that we want to have that main keyword within the URL itself. And we know that our heading tags, our H1, which you only want one of, needs to have our focus keyword in. And likewise, as we go down the page, H2s, H3s, H4s, if we can weave in that main domain, demand generation training or course within there, we want to do such.
Sam?
Yep.
I was just going to say, Sam, while you're on that page, would you mind having a look at B2B marketing course? Because, we've obviously niched down in demand generation, but much of what we talk about and teach is like good B2B marketing fundamental. And I'm just curious as to like what the search volume is around B2B marketing course or B2B marketing training. And then maybe it's worth having that conversation as to, why we should or shouldn't pursue that instead.
Good question. B2B marketing course, let's have a look. So difficulty-wise, fair bit higher in terms of keyword difficulty. I mean, keyword difficulty on tools like Ahrefs isn't the be-all, end-all. It's flagging up as 13 and saying it's medium difficulty. What have we got? Global search volume 700, US 150 organic visits per month, roughly. What's ranking top? Well, we've got LinkedIn ranking top. Then we've got a site called Coursera, and then Udemy, and then Forrester. So we've got some quite well-known course-based sites, it looks like. So this could be quite a lot more difficult to rank for. But that said, let's have a look at LinkedIn's page. It's ranking top. As we know, LinkedIn have got their own learning section. They've got a ton of content here. It's not even a kind of detailed page. It's literally just a page outlining a few of their courses with hardly any copy at all, but basically piggybacking off the domain and reputational authority that LinkedIn has. They can rank these kind of pages fairly easily. What else have we got? Coursera, which is second or third position. And again, that's looks like they've got a course there. I mean, it could be something that we chip away at long term. For the example of this experiment, how much of a time frame are you giving us, George, for this?
I think, look, the sooner the better, right? If we can get quicker results with a demand generation course, I'd rather go after that because that's where we're really trying to make a name for ourselves. And that's where we've really niched down. So I feel like there's also a better fit for us. And then perhaps, after we get wins there, then there's incentive to, as you said, chip away at something like B2B marketing course long-term. What are your thoughts there as to how a business should usually approach something like this?
So I would go always lean towards more niche and specific to your exact offering. So demand generation course, demand generation training, I think leans more into what you talk about on the podcast, the content that you share and what you build out and what your company stands for. And I think it's probably going to be more relevant, whereas B2B marketing, as we know, could mean a wide range of things, anything from Google ads, LinkedIn ads, to demand generation, to any SEO, to basically anything that falls under the B2B marketing umbrella. So it's a lot broader for starters. Also, it seems to be more competitive. So it might make sense to start with the demand generation focus keywords. I don't mind at all looking at a B2B marketing course and trying to build out a page and slowly chip away at ranking that as well for you. And perhaps that could be something we do a little later. I think as a starter though, and if we want to do something a bit more short term, I think demand generation training and course would just be a nice, quicker win.
Yeah, let's do that. Absolutely. And that's probably a good lesson for our listeners and viewers as well, is to chase those money keywords that match your niche the most, even if the search volume isn't as high, and you're probably going to get faster wins with it. Is that right, Sam? And then you can reinvest that into like knocking off the next tier.
Yeah, there's a few things to it, right? It's a lot of SEO is about matching user intent. So someone's probably not searching demand generation course for fun. Like they're not just bored one day and thinking, oh, demand generation training or demand generation course. They're probably searching it because they genuinely need help with the offering. And they are someone that's thought, yeah, demand generation is perhaps a skill set that I'm lacking in. So let's see what's showing up on Google. Let's have a browse of what companies are ranking top. Let's click into their page, see if they actually match what I'm looking to do. And on the basis that that page gives them the information that they're looking for, is trustworthy, is helpful, addresses their concerns, their questions, then they may well book onto the course, or they may well be a prospect that you can then kind of maybe get into your lead magnet or get into your funnel or even retarget potentially if they fit that ICP. So yeah, I'd always lean towards niches. And there's nothing wrong with going for broader keywords. It's just like we've shown there, they're often more competitive. They might not attract the exact type of prospect that you want, but long term, they can drive more traffic to your site. They can drive more potential leads. It's just more competitive for your company.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you going into that. And sorry to sidetrack us.
All good.
So we reviewed the search volume, we reviewed the domain ratings and the keyword difficulty. What are we going to look at next?
Yeah, so let's look at the structure of your page. So if we remind ourselves, so for example, the CXL page that's ranking for those 2 keywords we're going after, it's about 3,000 words. If we look at your site here, it's quite long form. I don't know if I can check now how many words it's got. Oh, nice. So it looks like the B2B incubator page has got about 4.4K words. So it's quite a long form page. So it's actually quite a nice page to pull some info for this demand generation training page we're going to use. So as we said, we want to make sure that the URL is going to be relevant. So when we rebuild this page, it'll probably be the b2bplaybook.com/demand-generation-course or similar. And we talked about the title tags and so on. So let's talk about this hero area. In the H1, we probably want something related to demand generation course or training. A YouTube video is great. You've already got a YouTube video embedded right in the top hero area. Love this because there's a number of benefits. I've always found that Google favors pages that have got YouTube videos embedded. From everything that I've done, they seem to rank a bit better. Naturally, Google runs YouTube, so they might have a bias towards it. Also, they can sometimes improve your click-through rate. So what you'll sometimes find is in the Google organic search results, sometimes the search engine results pages have little images next to them. So sometimes your little video can show up as a little thumbnail in that search result and improve your click-through rate. And also sometimes they can show in the video section as well. So if you've got a relevant video in that top hero area, it's sometimes a nice unfair advantage. So you've got that already. So what we want to do is we want to tailor this page a bit more so it's relevant to the course. But the good thing is a lot of this probably is. So a lot of it is probably taking this content and then reworking it and reformatting it and kind of freshening it up. So making sure we've got the relevant keyword in the top heading. So it might be something like our demand generation course will enable you to build a demand gen engine within 12 weeks, something like that within your main H1. And then you can probably keep a similar bit of subtext here where it talks about giving B2B marketers and school teams the strategy they need to kind of drive more revenue in their business. A lot of this stuff we can probably pull out. Then you've got a call to action to apply for the next cohort, which is great. Some subticks that talk about kind of more of the benefits, some social proof, which is always great for a page like this, apply for deadlines. So a lot of this page, and then we're diving into kind of, like you said, the problems that B2B marketers might face if they kind of fit your ICP. So a lot of this stuff we can kind of rework and build out in this page. So it gives us a really good template of what's going to work well. The only thing we want to consider, George, is kind of making sure that it's not a complete copy. So reworking the text so it's fresh, so it's not a clone. And again, in some of these title tags, making sure that they've got the main keyword that we're going after. But a lot of this, because you've got this framework and you've got a quite healthy page that's good in word count with about 4.4K words, a lot of this we can repurpose unless there is other bits and pieces that you think might be useful. So one thing that I'd probably say that we want to leverage, so as we scroll down the page, we can see that you actually get into the product itself, which is great, which I'd advise anyway. You talk about what the plan is, what's involved in the course, how it works, like weeks 1 to 5, weeks 5 to 10, which is all great stuff. Weeks 11 to 12, you've got regular call to actions, you've got regular social proof. So you're following a lot of the best practices that I'd share anyway as we build these kind of pages out. And you've got some solid FAQs. So a lot of this is really good stuff that I'd use anyway on long form pages that are solution based, that we actually want folks to take action on this kind of page. So a lot of it follows SEO best practice in terms of kind of CRO, in terms of actually getting folks to stay engaged on the page, build trust with social proof, examples, show the product in action, have regular calls to action, show them the problem, show them the impact of not fixing the problem, show them this new, better way. And a lot of that is already weaved into this B2B incubator pages. So a lot of it is just following about SEO best practices around meta title description, heading tags, URL. You've got some good FAQs. So one thing I would say is right at the bottom of the page, you've got a whole bunch of FAQs, but I would try and, again, a lot of these we can reuse and rework. So you've got things like, can you tell me more about what I'll learn on the course? Who is it for? Who shouldn't it be for? Which is great. What I do is try and weave in the target keyword within these. So some of these we can reuse, but for example, who is our demand generation course for? Who's a demand generation course not for? Can any demand generation marketer use this? So it's not keyword stuffing, but it's making sure it's actually showing Google that we're talking about the subject at hand. And this is quite literally, I know we talked about at the start of this episode where I got B2B SEO agency ranked organic position 1 in 90 days. That's basically what I did. I talked about the offer, talked about the process, talked about the problems folks might face, the impact if they don't invest in B2B SEO, the new better way, how our solution works. And then at the bottom of the page, FAQs around this kind of stuff. So yeah, if we can weave in any FAQs around demand generation course pricing, how it works, what's involved, which you've got already on the B2B incubator page. So a lot of this is just taking that good stuff and reworking it from demand generation course perspective, if that all makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so good that we're not going to have to do a complete overhaul, but we're going to have to make it more SEO friendly, and they're all fantastic tips to improve it. In terms of the way the content is structured and having those FAQs in like an accordion section, does that make a difference, or like Google's pretty good at reading into that and they understand all of that, so it doesn't matter?
Yeah. And this is something, once you build out V1 of the page and publish it. So this is something that I encourage generally. This is just a good SEO practice. Like so many folks, hopefully a lot of listeners, some will be, some won't. I'd imagine some marketers tuning in are probably in real large scale organizations where it takes a lot of time to get things green lighted and signed off and then eventually pass the content through to developers and then eventually published. Whereas there's probably folks at the other end of the spectrum where they're scrappy B2B marketers where they can pretty much publish something as soon as it's ready. So the advantage we've got being a small business, George, is that we can kind of create these pages, we can build them out and we can publish them to our website. Is your website built on WordPress?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Nice. So it's relatively easy to kind of build out these pages, get the content up there and publish it. And the good thing is even if you've kind of followed everything we've discussed, you've published it up there, we can optimize it over time. So one thing I say when it comes to SEO is work out what you want to do. So in our case, work out the target keywords we want to go after, work out what the intent behind the page is. So we talked about that we want to go for, in our case, demand generation course and demand generation training, because those keywords current results are high intent pages. They're folks looking for a solution. They're not informative based keywords. We assess what ranks well. So now let's build out the page. Let's publish it. Let's optimize later. Let's do those best practices. If we see after a few weeks the page is still not ranking, then let's look for gaps in it. Let's perhaps add a bit more copy. Let's add a few more FAQs, maybe add some more social proof, maybe go in depth on a bit more topics. I always encourage folks to publish fast, see how it works, give Google a bit of time to index the page and pick it up, and then optimize it. But what we can talk about to fast track this process, now we've talked about what we're going to do on the page, perhaps we can dive into how we can build some authority to the page, maybe with some backlinks and some processes to basically juice up this page, show Google that it's a trustworthy page and fast track it ranking.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. I've got some ideas in terms of internal linking, and I would love to hear your thoughts about that as well, and then how to go about getting some backlinks and strategies around that too. When it comes to internal linking, just going to bring up on my screen, we've been preparing for this a little bit, and basically we're releasing a demand generation mini series,
nice,
where it's like an 11-part mini series that like all articles lead on to each other, answering all the commonly asked questions we get around demand generation, starting from what is demand gen, when's the right time to do it, how to build a winning business case for it, should you start from scratch, how to transition from lead gen to demand gen, our framework to help with that, how to budget for it, and each article is like pretty in depth like this as well. It's got a YouTube video, it's got a podcast episode as well. And some are starting to rank on their own as well. And so I'm hoping we might be able to leverage some of these as well in our internal linking. I don't know, but I just wanted to share that with you in case that might be helpful.
That's great. I mean, that's right. So we want this new page that we're building out to be easily crawled by Google. So like you mentioned there, we want some internal links. So the good thing about your site is you've got quite a bit of content within the blog, within other pages already. So if we can quickly show Google that it's going to be easy for it to crawl. So if we can weave in the keyword that we're going for, so in this case, demand generation course or demand generation training, if we can find some relevant pages on your site, which you've brought up demand generation KPIs, what to measure. If we can find a relevant piece of content with that page, put the keyword demand generation course, link that out internally to this new page. And if we can do that on a few pages or articles within your site, where it fits nicely and where it's relevant, then that's just going to make it easier for Google to crawl. And likewise, that might be something we want to do within the new page we're building out, i.e. if there's any sections where we're talking about perhaps other services you offer, whether that is LinkedIn ads, whether that is maybe another topic that you've covered on the podcast, or another subsector. And then if you can, again, do an internal link from that new page to some relevant pages, perhaps 3 or 4 internal links might be quite nice just to make those crawlable. And again, that all helps with the SEO plan that we're doing. So that's a good point. So in terms of fast tracking this process, let's say we've built out our best in class page. We followed all those technical SEO processes we've talked about. We've made this a really useful solution page. Like we've showed folks, like this is the problem you're facing. This is probably the impact of not doing it. Here's why we're well suited to help you. Here's some examples that we've done for other folks. Here's the actual product in action. This is what the course is about. Here's a call to action. Here's some FAQs, some objections you might have. And here's kind of why you should consider us. And addressing all that head on. Now we want to juice up the page. We want to get some backlinks. So the good thing about yourself, George, is that you've probably one of the quickest wins, I think, for you. I always talk about when it comes to backlinks, leveraging partners, because they're one of the quickest wins to do it. But in your case, you've probably guested on quite a few podcasts, I'd imagine, over the years.
Yes, that's correct. Yep. Quite a few.
Yeah, the good thing about yourself, and we can talk about examples for other folks, but the good thing about yourself is you can tap into all those shows that have had you on. And I'd imagine nearly all those shows have probably built out an article or similar for each and every episode. So There is sites, I think one is called Listen Notes, where you can actually type in your name. So we could quite literally go onto Listen Notes and we could search for your name, George Coudounaris. And the good thing about this site is you can quite literally bring up all the episodes that you've guested on. So that would be one of the quickest wins for you. That's a little bit of a hack. So something I did. So naturally this isn't apply to everyone, but I'll talk about how this can be relevant for other B2B marketers. So as an example, my name, like once I built out, as we talked about at the start, the B2B SEO agency page in our case, in your case, it would be demand generation training page. You can go onto a site like Listen Notes. This would be good for anyone that guests regularly on podcasts. You can type in your own name and it'll bring up all the shows that you've guested on. And for me, this was a really quick way of remembering what I'd been on. And then I reached out to all these folks on LinkedIn, which you could do the same, George. You can literally just type in your own name and it'll bring up a list of all the shows you've guested on. And then you can literally just DM these folks on LinkedIn and just say, thanks for having me on the show recently. Bit of a cheeky one, but could you quickly go to the article page? And what I'd do to make it easy for them is I'd probably bring up the article, link it in the DM and just say, would you mind linking back to this target keyword as it's one we're trying to rank at the moment and link to this page? So in your case, do you mind weaving in George's co-founder at the B2B Marketing Playbook? He runs a demand generation course, and then do that as an anchored link back to your site. That, I'd imagine you've probably guested on quite a few podcasts over the years, George. That would probably be a really quick win for you. If you just dig out those podcasts that you've guested on, reach out to those hosts and ask them to link to that.
Yeah, that's an unreal idea. Absolutely. And we've always tried to maintain relationships with those people too. So hopefully they'll do us a solid.
That's probably one of the quickest ones. And another way which most folks can leverage is partners. So not necessarily podcasts, but that could be existing clients, customers within your network, friends, anyone that serves a similar kind of ICP ideal client profile, but isn't a direct competitor. So you can reach out to these folks and basically say, I'm up for creating some content for you. So you want to do them a bit of a solid. So it might be, I'm proposing to build out a useful article for your site, or maybe a useful video, or something that's of value for them and their audience. So in my case, I just reviewed their website. I reached out to a bunch of SaaS companies, basically were in my network on LinkedIn, or that I was friends with, or that I knew from perhaps prospects or customers, and basically said, look, I'm up for doing a guest article on your site. Let me know what topic you want it to be on. Built out an article that was kind of vaguely related to my sector and their sector. I said, look, I do need a do follow back link to this page for this target keyword. 9 out of 10 of the people I asked said yes. And the good thing about this, George, is that you probably won't need that many backlinks because this keyword's relatively low difficulty. We probably, from my experience, only need kind of 4 or 5, maybe a few more links. The more the merrier, of course. And that would give us quite a good reputation and domain boost, I think. So yeah, leveraging partners, leveraging existing network. If needed, offering to to build them a piece of content. But I think in your case, George, you probably wouldn't need to do much of that because you've probably guested on quite a few podcasts over the years. So you could probably just piggyback off that and those relationships and just ask them to link back to demand generation training or course. And I think you'd probably get quite a nice boost.
That's a great shout. So in terms of the anchor text that we use, it should contain demand generation course. Does it matter if like a few words either side are linked, or do we just want demand generation course to be strictly linked? Like, how do we handle that?
Yeah, you can do it naturally. So for example, when I did it, I think the anchor text was professional B2B SEO agency. So it doesn't have to be strictly the keyword, as long as the keyword's within there. So it might be like try their demand generation course or something like that. You could do it just to the keyword, or you could add another word on there before or after, just so it sounds a bit more natural within the context of however they've done the write-up on the article, just so it weaves in there a bit more naturally rather than just a random keyword jammed in.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Well, that's a great action plan then. So I want to try and get 4 or 5 of those. I'm going to reach out to people that are guested on their podcast as a first port of call, because that's, the lowest lift for me as well. Where to from here, Sam? So I need to go away and I need to go and create that page based on the best practice and what you've recommended. And then should we have another session once I've done that after a couple of weeks of that being published, or maybe another couple of weeks after I've gone and got those backlinks to that there? Yeah,
let's do it all. I mean, how long do you think you'll need to take that template, rework that page, sort out the URL of a new page, build out the metadata, build out the heading tags, build out the fresh copy, and those structural changes? Like, how long do you think you need roughly?
Oh, probably about 10 days.
Okay. And then meanwhile, whilst you're doing that, maybe you can start prepping some of the partners, some of your networks, some of the podcasts that you've been on, and just start prepping them for it so they're ready and raring to go to get that link sorted on their articles. So if we catch up in, 2 weeks, 10 days or so, and then you'll have that page published. Maybe we catch up in 3 weeks, so it gives Google a bit of time to crawl it. If we need a bit longer, we can, and then we can kind of see how it's tracking, and hopefully that'll give it a bit of time, and then we can see if we need to make any revisions to the page or add a few more links or that kind of stuff. And also we need to do those internal links we talked about.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll let you know how we go, and hopefully we'll book in another chat in about 3 weeks' time or so, maybe 4 if I get bogged down, but because we are going to be releasing the results as we go. Thank you so much, Sam, for your time. I really, really appreciate it, mate, and excited to get cracking on this one. Cheers. Today, I'm very excited because we're sharing the results of our live SEO experiment, where we wanted to see how fast could we rank in Google search using SEO for our money keyword. Last episode, we caught up and I told you, I said, Sam, I want you to help me rank for our money keyword. And our money keyword is demand generation course, because that's what we sell with the B2B Playbook. Now, you very helpfully did some keyword research, and you found, I think there were two keywords that were really useful. It was demand generation course and demand generation training. Both are trending up and roughly 100 to 200 searches per month.
Yeah, I think we looked at a couple, didn't we, when we did the previous episode? And I think a couple we thought just weren't worth targeting, mainly for the search volume. And I also think the results pages that were showing for a couple of the keywords were just not really relevant, i.e. they were bringing up like long form how-to articles when we want to be ranking a landing page. So almost if we went for a couple of those alternative keywords that we were looking at last time, it would be an uphill battle trying to rank a landing page where Google expects kind of how-to or informative based articles, if that makes sense. So I think we derived on demand gen course is one of our primary keywords because we thought that would be attracting high intent prospects that are kind of in market for your offer and ready to have that sales conversation if they do land on the page.
So that's the one that you gave us. That's the one that you then gave us a strategy to execute. I'm going to share with everyone what we did to execute that strategy and the results that came from it. Before we got into that, I also noticed, Sam, that probably quite a good thing is the year-on-year change in search volume for demand generation course. 90% up year on year, which I suppose suggests that, again, another sign that this is a keyword worth investing in because it is very closely aligned to our business and perhaps because it's growing too. Is that fair to say?
I think if you rewind back probably 3, 4, maybe a little bit longer, demand gen wasn't something that was really widely talked about, certainly in my circles anyway. It wasn't until probably for me, 2021, when I started listening to podcasts like Chris Walker's and other folks, and of course your guys' podcast, that I really understood what demand generation even meant. I think it's becoming more and more known as a term, and people are starting to realize that this is a solid way to go to market. And like you say, Google's reflecting that because more folks are searching for this kind of stuff, trying to get stuck in.
Well, let's hope it continues to grow. Okay, on to results. So Sam gave us a strategy, and then I think 60-something days later, we actually hit number one, which is pretty fantastic. We were planning on having another episode, Sam, weren't we, between the one where you gave us the strategy and the one where we did these results, because I thought we were going to get stuck somewhere, maybe bottom of page 1, top of page 2, and we need your advice on how to really progress to number 1. But Sam, number 1, you've done it.
Yeah, it was quicker than I was expecting. I mean, you're going to share the outcomes, the result, because that's the main thing, the actual book leads and sales revenue off the back end. But it was quicker than I expected. But at the same time, George, you were very proactive with the recommendations that I provided, both for the landing page, the technical SEO, the content strategy, and going out there and building some decent backlinks with potential partners, which perhaps we can dive into in a sec, because this is quite a competitive keyword. And I don't know if you want to disclose some of the competitors. It's entirely up to you, but there were some big B2B SaaS, B2B kind of service-based giants that were ranking above us initially. So the only way really, even with a best-in-class page that follows kind of good technical SEO guidelines, has really useful, helpful content that kind of shares on the landing page, problem you fix, impact of that problem, proof that you're the person or the company to help them with the results, addresses common questions, concerns, problems, and all that good stuff, and then kind of really positions you as a trustworthy source with social proof and all that kind of stuff folks would want to see on a landing page to be convinced that you're the right option for the course they're looking to invest in. But that aside, without backlinks for these kind of competitive terms, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle. So I know you did a good job, George, kind of sourcing partners and building some nice links to juice up this ranking.
Yeah, I want to take people through some of those recommendations you gave me on how to go about getting them with, not too much effort. But look, I'll disclose the competitors that we got past, because I think it's worth it. It's a good achievement. We got past Cognism, CXL, in their own demand gen course, the Online Marketing Institute, Pavilion. These are all our top competitors, and we just absolutely flew past them as we continued to execute and implement the strategies that you gave us.
Great stuff. Yeah, and I think I saw HubSpot flying up for a few similar keywords, so it's not all bad.
Yeah, absolutely. So we created the page on the 2nd of June, Sam, that you told me to create to really try and rank for this keyword. We already had a landing page for the B2B Incubator, which is our demand generation course. And you recommended, if we wanted to keep that, let's just create a whole separate new one. And that's what we did. So we created that on the 2nd of June, and I think we hit number 1 spot on the 8th of August. So it took us 67 days, which is probably pretty quick in your view, Sam, would you say?
Yeah, there's a few things to consider. First and foremost, I think we talked about on the previous episode, but maybe not. Your website itself doesn't have like a ton of domain rating or domain authority. So bearing in mind, I'll check it in a sec whilst we're chatting, but bearing in mind that was fairly low. We were almost fighting an uphill battle. So I'm sure if you looked at sites like Cognism or CXL, they're going to have a super high domain authority, probably somewhere like 60, 70, or even higher, whereas I think yours was around 20, possibly a bit lower. So almost starting an uphill battle. Add to that, we had to create a fresh page. So we didn't have anything there already that we were enhancing. We were almost going from scratch. But of course, you had the template there that we could rejig, take some good stuff out in terms of the design and framework, but we still had to put together the content from scratch, obviously create a brand new page, then show Google that this was a page worth picking up. And I think you might mention in a minute kind of internally linking from some other relevant pages on your site to help Google crawl it. And then doing the stuff like once we decided on the focus keyword, including that in the URL. So it's yourdomain.com/demand-generation-course, including that in the H1 heading tag, including that in the meta description, meta title. And I know you did a nice meta title. So when folks are scrolling through the Google results, it's got a bit of a hook in that title that they see in the search engine result page, which also helps with click-through rates. Okay, what was yours, George, that you decided on for that?
I think I actually went with the one that you gave me. Demand generation course, then square brackets, crush 2024 revenue goals. So probably well aligned to the outcome that people want. And then the description, again, mentions the keyword demand generation. This 12-week course gives you the strategy, templates, and tools you need to deliver a best-in-class B2B demand generation program, top rated.
Yeah. And I think what I've seen anyway confuses kind of B2B marketers and B2B founders when they're getting stuck into SEO is there's a lot of folks in the SEO world talk so much about technical SEO. And I'm probably almost the opposite. I'll do the very least technical SEO that I can get away with to get a page ranking, because from experience anyway, until you get to pages with hundreds and hundreds or even thousands of pages, technical SEO doesn't matter that much from sites we've ranked. And what I mean by that is worrying about kind of getting 100 at 100 page speed. As long as your website loads fast, it's fine. Making sure everything's kind of perfectly aligned, going into things like JavaScript and messing around with all that stuff and really worrying deeply about navigation. As long as you follow the basics, i.e. the website loads quickly, your main URL actually has the focus keyword in, your heading 1 tag has a focus keyword in, your meta title and description have it within, and then the actual page intent is built to what Google expects. So what I mean by that is when someone searches, for example, demand generation course, that typically comes up with landing pages. But sometimes when you type in your keyword on Google, that might come up with product listicles, or it might come up with that information how-to article, or it might come up with a comparison article. So you need to understand the intent of the type of page that Google expects to rank. And then you need to review what the current top 1, top 2 organic pages are and look for gaps in those pages of how you can basically show Google that, and your focus clients, your dream clients, that you're more helpful, more useful, more trustworthy. You understand their world better. You can differentiate your product, your service, your offer, all within that page. So a lot of the tips and ideas I give are more around thinking about the end user or the end prospect, and how can we really show them as well as Google that we're kind of well positioned, not only to rank, but we've got to remember we want to convert with this page. So there's no point just chucking a bunch of text and doing some technical SEO on a page. We actually want someone to land on this page and think, well, this looks good. Yep, they understand the problem I fix. They understand the problem I'm facing, rather. Yep, they understand my world. Yep, that I am struggling with that. And yes, I do want to see some examples of other customers that they've helped. And yeah, let's book onto this, or let's book a call, or whatever that call to action is. So I think that gets lost with a lot of kind of SEO advice. It's kind of more technical rather than thinking, well, these are folks that have the same frustrations, problems, concerns that you do when you're investing in B2B offerings. Let's kind of position ourselves in their shoes, if that makes sense.
And something we'll get into a little bit later, but perhaps why, Sam, the pipeline that came from this page was so strong. If you look up, we had 120 sessions over 60 something days. So look, it's not an enormous amount of traffic, but it's like very good targeted traffic. And I think the reason why we'll see that this quality pipeline that's come from it is, to your point there, right? We're speaking exactly to the pains, to the problems that the people who are searching this are facing.
And that's it. And that's another trap. I think we talked about it in the first episode I was on with yourself. A massive trap in SEO, B2B SEO, SaaS SEO is that marketers, founders get stuck in the traffic, high traffic keywords. But unfortunately, they tend to usually be more informational based. So they'll go into tools like Ahrefs or SEMrush or Ubersuggest. They'll look for keywords relevant to their industry. And that might be something like how to do something, or best ways to do something, or that kind of stuff. And it has a ton of traffic. But when it comes to the more commercial keywords, so in your case, demand generation course, or in my world, that might be B2B SEO agency or SaaS SEO agency, like these real high intent keywords that folks type on Google when they actually want to speak to a salesperson or invest in the offer. They often have way less search volume, but because the intent behind it is so much higher, there's so much more commercial value, it doesn't matter. There'll be less people landing on the page, but as long as your page does all those things we just talked about, then you're actually going to get more on the back end in terms of leads or demos or sales calls or whatever your end goal is. So it's one of those things. Don't be deluded by high traffic, as long as the kind of keyword represents what a target client would actually search when they want to speak to someone on your offer.
Yeah, it's fantastic advice. Just as part of the educational material that we try to create, we did create a landing page, an article around what is demand generation, which is something that gets way bigger search volume, which is naturally a lot more competitive. But even as our page climbs up the rankings, I mean, person who's searching that could have a very, very different intent, right, to demand generation course. It's much further up a funnel.
Exactly. And it's not that type of SEO doesn't have its place. It's still useful. It just means that that person, like you said, is more looking to understand what demand generation is, and they might get some tips from the page. They might then check out your podcast, or they might sign up to your email list, or they might check out your YouTube channel, or they might check out another asset. So you're kind of keeping them within your ecosystem, but because they're so much earlier in their journey, it's extremely unlikely that they're then going to sign up to your course. But they might, like you say, subscribe to one of those assets, and 6 months, 12 months down the line, they might become a customer, or they might refer a customer.
Yeah, great point. And I suppose this is why you say with SEO, you should kind of start from the bottom up in terms of the funnel, because I mean, if someone is investing resources in SEO, we want to get a return sooner rather than later. So that's generally your approach, isn't it, Sam? Is you do look for those money keywords first?
Yeah, exactly. I think you've said similar for demand generation, but I always think of, if I imagined the marketing budget as a barrel, I would imagine things like outbound sales, Google ads, LinkedIn ads, event marketing, influencer marketing, partnerships. And right at the bottom of that investment, that budget barrel, would be SEO, scraping the bottom, fighting for its life to get budget or resource from the team. So I always think, well, if we've got such limited cash or resource to invest in SEO, let's make sure the work we do is going to have the biggest impact in the shortest space of time. So for that reason, yeah, let's focus on what we call quote unquote money keywords, i.e. what is a prospect going to search when they're wanting to have a sales conversation around our offer now, when they're directly searching for the product or service, or when they're comparing us to alternatives, or when they're really kind of, they know what they want, and we just need to understand what are those search terms that they're searching when they are needing that product or that service. So start there and then work up the funnel, whether that's doing that and then exhausting that bottom of the funnel for every niche, every service, every industry, and every variation of that keyword, and then going up to more informational based searches once you have completely exhausted bottom funnel.
Great. It totally aligns with our approach to marketing in general. Makes a lot of sense. Take that bottom up approach. Speaking to what we were saying earlier around some of the changes that we needed to make to our landing page that we created. As I said, we already had an existing landing page for the B2B Incubator, which is our demand generation course. For those who are watching, I've got that here on the left. And I just wanted to show a little before and after, just so people can get a feel for the kinds of changes we made on the page based on your recommendations. On the before, our H1, our title was just build your demand gen engine in 12 weeks. So we've got demand gen in the title, but not demand gen course, which is what we're trying to rank for. So the page that we went and created, we followed your advice, Sam, and we just wrote the ultimate demand generation course, crush your revenue targets in 2024. So that also really nicely matches the title that we have when people view it on Google. It matches their immediate need, and it's good for Google too, right? Because we have demand generation course in that H1 there.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, H1 is a big impact when it comes to ranking a page. And one thing to consider is you only want one H1, and then your other titles throughout the page can be H2 or H3. And some people worry, like, how many times should I repeat the keyword in my copy or in my other heading tags? And I just say do it naturally. Like if you're talking about a topic, it's probably going to weave in naturally when you do your body text, when you talk about maybe the problem that your prospects are facing, maybe when you're sharing your process later down on the landing page, when you're talking about how it works or results you've got for others. As long as you weave in that keyword nicely there and don't jam it in too many times, you can't go too far wrong.
Yeah, we just kind of found opportunities where we'd already said demand generation and then kind of stuck course after it, which made more sense. I probably should have done it before. It makes even more sense in the context of this page. Certainly doesn't seem to be any kind of punishment from Google. And I'm sure if you went through and read the page, or if the average person went through and read the page, they wouldn't notice that there's any kind of keyword stuffing per se.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
So just a few more before and after examples there. Underneath our H1, we had, I suppose, like our little description. Before that used to just be, we give B2B marketers and small teams the strategy, templates, and tools that they need to drive more revenue for their business. We then changed that to be our demand generation training course gives B2B marketers and small teams, blah, 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 the same spiel. So we just added demand generation training course in there. Underneath that, we have B2B marketers love the B2B incubator and all the reviews and testimonials we get. Just a simple change, reviews of our demand gen course from B2B marketers. And I think that's an H2. And then I think if you scroll down, you'll see instead of just FAQs, it'll be FAQs of our demand gen course. And so we just try and work it in.
Yeah, that's it. Any way you can kind of fit it in naturally, like I said, it's not stuffing in that focus keyword. Where it makes sense is is just going to help.
Cool. And I don't think we needed to add a whole lot of length to the page, Sam. I think it was at least a couple of thousand words already.
I think it was. I think the good thing was that you already had which not every marketer or founder is going to have in place, but you had a decent sized landing page already that, like you said, had 1,500, had 2,000 words. And we did compare. One thing perhaps we should mention is we did look at the top 2 organic pages that were already ranking for that keyword before we got their demand gen course, which I think was Cognism and CXL. And I think they had 2,000 or so words. We thought, to be safe, let's try and bump that up a bit. I mean, I always say if I'm trying to outrank a page and I've looked for my focus keyword, what is ranking 1, 2, and 3 organic spots, I always use a bit of a blow out the water strategy. So I think let's be safe. Let's not only look for gaps in this page in terms of where we could add value, whether that's embedding a YouTube video on the topic, whether that's adding more hands-on expertise content like we really know your problem, we really know your world, we know the impact it's having. We're going to share some examples of customer results, whether that's review videos, testimonials, quotes. We're going to share the process. Maybe we're going to share the team involved. We're going to drill down into FAQs, like we're going to answer like all the FAQs you have around how much does it cost, how long does it take to implement, why should I choose you over a competitor, and all that kind of stuff, that the tough ones that come up on sales calls, and basically just make this page as better as I usually go kind of 2 to 3x better than I can on the competitors. So for example, if it was a comparison or a product listicle page, like the top 10 alternatives that you'll often see in the SaaS world, I'll try and double it or triple it in terms of value, in terms of helpfulness and all that kind of stuff, just so then I'm not going to be worrying 1 or 2 months later that this competitor is going to outrank me because I've built something that's so much more helpful, useful, and informative.
There you go. You just got to make sure it's better, don't you? You've got to really, really prove to Google that you deserve that top spot. In terms of backlinks, so Sam, you told us that there's internal backlinks and external backlinks. Do you just want to quickly break down the difference between the two?
Oh yeah, so you've got something called internal linking, which in short is just a simple way when you're publishing a new page to your website. This comes in handy, especially if the page might not be going on like a blog or resource section where it's easily navigatable from your website menu. But essentially, when you're publishing a new page, like George did for Demand Generation course, you want to make it super easy for Google to find and crawl. So look for any relevant pages that already exist on your website where you can put a little link to that new page, and vice versa, that you can link from that new page to other relevant pages. So what's George got here? He already had blog articles for, it looks like, how to measure demand generation KPIs, the ultimate B2B demand generation guide. So he had a bunch of articles already on the topic of demand gen, whereby within those articles, he could link one of those keywords and link to that new page. And that, in short, basically just helps Google crawl the page a bit faster. And then likewise, from that new page that he created, the landing page for demand gen course, there might have been a couple opportunities where he could link back to those useful articles. In short, it just makes it a bit easier for Google to crawl the page, and also helps the end prospect that lands on your site. So if they're reading one of these how-to articles and then they think, oh, I'm actually ready for a demand generation course, then they can click that internal link and that links to that new landing page. So it's just good for user experience and also good for Google.
Does it help with authority and relevance at all, Sam? So if, I've got 15 articles, all around demand generation and a whole lot of things that you would want to know if you were taking a demand gen course, and they're linking back to that course. Is that a signal to Google that maybe I am a bit more of an authority on this topic at all?
We've had clients that, I can't tell you the exact impact, but we have had clients that have said that just by doing internal links to pages from other relevant articles that are on the topic, or service pages or landing pages, whatever, it has bumped up those keyword rankings. So it does seem to do the trick. And especially, like I say, if you've got a brand new page that you're publishing that Google's yet to crawl, you want ultimately to signal to Google as fast as possible that this page is active. So if you can find relevant articles, service pages, wherever on your site that you can link to internally, then it's only going to help the case.
And to try and confirm that context to Google, we tried with our anchor text when we were linking between these pages back to our demand gen course page. Most of the time we just wrote the words demand gen course. That was our anchor text, meaning that's what was then linking back to the course page. We swapped it up a bit with demand gen training, join our 12-week demand gen course. So we changed it up a little bit.
Yep.
Is there a danger of of overdoing it if I just did it 20 times with demand gen courses? Does that look bad?
Yeah, I think you've done the right thing, because we normally encourage the same, similar for, which we'll talk about in a sec, backlinks. But yeah, I think with internal links, with backlinks, if you can mix up the wording, so in your case, rather than just jamming demand generation course as an internal link on every single page, sometimes you've done demand generation training, sometimes you've done join our 12-week demand generation course. If you can mix it up a bit, the same for backlinks, and make it a bit more natural, it seems to help. I think that's a good idea if you can do that.
Okay, awesome. And just for those listening, look, we just listed it out in a spreadsheet to keep track of what we were doing. So we knew how many times we'd link to it, what anchor text we use, whether that link came at the beginning, middle, or end of an article. I'm not sure if that matters, but just at least a bit of a record for us, Sam. Because if something does go wrong, then maybe we might be able to correlate that with an action we did at our end.
Then you blame me.
You can look at one of those lines there and go, I didn't tell you to do that. All right, cool. So that was internal links. And then external backlinks. So getting other people to link to you. You had some really great strategies.
You've done a great job here. I mean, you made a comprehensive list, which is probably even more smarter laid out than I do. So just like on a previous episode where I talked about when we started breaking B2B.com 6 months ago, and I wanted to get, just like we've done for yourself, I wanted to get our money keywords around B2B SEO agency, SaaS SEO agency ranking as quick as humanly possible. So as well as doing everything that you've done for those service pages and landing pages, we wanted to juice them up, outrank those big competitors and get some keywords so we could start getting these competitive keywords ranking as high as possible, as quickly as possible. So one of my favorite strategies to earn really solid backlinks, and also it's good for repeat business, building relationships and much more, is make a list, Google Sheets, Excel sheets, wherever you want to do it, of who are your partners, clients, customers, suppliers, friends, colleagues in industries that serve a very similar ICP, a similar ideal client profile to you, but are not direct competitors. And who can you have the quickest win to strike up a conversation with? In my case, and I think you were the same, like we both know a guy called Justin Rowe who runs a LinkedIn ads agency called Impactable. And I think he's been on your show, George, and I think vice versa, and the same for us. So that's like, if you've got someone like that that's going after the same ICP that you've already got a good relationship with, drop a message. And then the whole point is you can create content together. So it could be that it's a very low risk ask for them. So you might say, look, I'd love to kind of write up an article for your website. And within that article, it might be something that's actually genuinely useful to their target market, i.e., perhaps George gave some tips on firing up a demand generation engine or something like that. Or maybe he shared his 5Bs framework or whatever it may be. And then within that article, you submit that to this person. So in this case, Justin, he runs a LinkedIn ads agency. He'd say, happy to collaborate because we've already got that relationship. So it's probably quite an easy ask. And then build out an article, put a backlink within that article. So maybe towards the end, you try and weave in your link. So in George's case, it was demand generation course. So you might just say, when you're wrapping up the article, you might just say, oh, by the way, if you're interested in firing up your own, or if you're interested in checking out our demand generation course, and then that's a do follow backlink to that landing page. And that it's as simple as that, really. I mean, that's what we call quite a low risk ask because you've already got that relationship. If it was perhaps a prospect that you'd not had much communication with or done much business with, you might do something like invite them onto your podcast, or you might apply to be on their podcast. I mean, there's good websites called Chartable or Listen Notes, where you can quite literally go onto a site like Listen Notes. You can type in your industry and it will bring up all the relevant podcasts. So for example, our example, B2B marketing, we'll see all those podcasts. If you're in logistics, type that in, you'll see the top logistics show. You can filter it by podcast. You can filter it by the top listened, like the top 5%, top 2.5% listened. You can reach out to those guests or those hosts rather on whatever platform they hang out on, be it LinkedIn or elsewhere. And I've got a bit of a cheeky way that I do podcast outreach. So I quite literally find the host on LinkedIn and I just drop them a painfully short personalized request like, hey, Steve, or hey, Janice, had an unusual idea for your podcast. Are you against a conversation? And they'll accept the connection request. Like, what the hell is this guy on about? Like, he's just put this really weird message. They'll accept it. I'll send them a little Loom video with my idea with some concepts for their podcast. And then that's maybe a 50% acceptance rate. Do a valuable podcast with them. Once you've done the helpful podcast, you ask, most folks will do an article page for that podcast. kind of summarizing the podcast with the video, with the audio, the transcript, and then you just ask for a backlink to your target keyword. But there's so many content plays, guest article plays, podcast plays that you can do with partners, customers, clients, friends to earn backlinks. The only thing I'd say is try and check that the website that you're trying to earn a backlink from has got some domain rating or domain authority. And you can check that with a tool like Ahrefs or SEMrush, and Ahrefs has got a free trial that you can kind of use. So that's probably some of the lowest kind of friction ways that you can do it, that just take kind of more sweat equity than cash.
That's exactly what we did. I think we took your advice first and went for that low-hanging fruit. The people whose podcast I had already appeared on, and they had a landing page and they hadn't linked to this, I reached back out to them, and I think I managed to get 3 or 4 of those links in a week or so. So that was really, really easy.
Nice.
I think that got us to the bottom of page 1 or so. And then I think I had a chat with you on LinkedIn, and you had a bit of a look into it and said, look, I think you probably need to target some more of the heavy hitters, websites with higher domain authority. And that's where you shared your advice of, reach out to people that Factors was one of them. They've got a much stronger website, big SaaS company. I had a relationship with them, and also tried to make it as much of a no-brainer as possible. These people are always looking for content. They want it written by experts. So I did exactly what you said to do. I wrote a demand generation guide, and through it showed how you could use Factors software to help, achieve demand generation and do it better. And then I did the exact same thing with Impactable, with Justin. I reached out to Justin, told him that this is what we would love to do, and we'd be very happy to feature an article of his on our website and, link back to him, make it a win-win, and did the same thing, except instead of talking about how you can do demand generation with Factors, talk about how you can do demand gen with LinkedIn ads. So just tried to make it as much of a no-brainer as possible.
There's actually even one that I should mention. There's a really, really low lift way to earn backlinks that is not so applicable for brand new startups. But if your B2B company is somewhat established, then you can leverage past press or PR that maybe your exec team, leadership team, or CEO or founders, or maybe marketing leadership have been involved in the past. And you're quite literally just putting your website URL on whatever SEO tool you use, Ahrefs, SEMrush, whatever, go filter it to the backlinks tab, and then start going to old links. And you'll realize that in past articles, press, whatever, they've probably just done a generic link to your website and in all these old articles. So if you can reach out to the editor or whoever that put the article together and just say, look, would you mind taking a sec to just update this link from a generic link to our website to this focus page, and I'll give you the copy, I'll give you the exact text I want. Most of those will help. As long as you can contact them, they'll update that. And another cheeky one is, if someone on your exec team is active on LinkedIn, you'll probably notice that in some articles they've just linked to that person's LinkedIn and some press, PR, instead of to your website. So you can quite literally go on, again, an SEO tool, Ahrefs, SEMrush, go by search, type, literally copy and paste their LinkedIn profile of whoever the active person from your company is, copy and paste their LinkedIn profile URL, and you can see all the backlinks that have linked directly to their LinkedIn URL. And a lot of those article pages won't have linked to your website. And you, again, contact that editor and just say, hey, thanks very much for linking to my LinkedIn. This is a cheeky ask, but could you link to this focus keyword? And most of them will, because they've already linked to your LinkedIn page. So it's, again, another way of leveraging stuff that's already there in PR and just earning some nice backlinks off the back of it.
That's such a great tip. They're really, really good. If I can maybe add just one thing, is when I made these requests for people to just update their website quickly, I don't know if you do this, Sam, or if you think it makes a difference, but I tried to make it as easy for them as possible. So if I was sending them an email with the changes, I would copy and paste what was there currently, and then have prepared written for them what to change it to. So it was just so easy for them.
Exactly. Like everything, if it's sales or marketing, you want to remove as much friction as you can. So that's a great idea. Or even offer them an incentive. You probably don't need to if you're asking a mate or a friend. But if it's someone that's coming in cold, you might want to give them a bit of a sweetener, whether that's inviting them to your podcast or creating some content for them or something like that. So they've got a bit of a sweetie for giving you that link.
Before we go into the results from this, Sam, like the actual pipeline, something that sprung to mind for me, and actually what I was kind of thinking of as I was going through this process, is the benefit of having a media arm to your business, because it makes these asks so much easier, because all of a sudden you have something to give to that person.
So true. So true. I think you and I certainly do, almost take it for granted because I've been running the Breaking B2B podcast for like 4 years. I always take it for granted that I've got this show so I can just leverage it when I'm doing outreach or messaging folks. And I can just say, yeah, we'll bring you on the show, or yeah, I've got this episode that you can check out, or yeah, I talked about that recently. But it's having a media arm. I guess I think of it as just having a podcast, but at the same time, it's so right. Like if you've got a piece of media, it doesn't have to be a podcast. It could be a webinar. It could be a different asset. But if you've got that way of communicating both to your ideal clients through the channels that they consume, whether that's YouTube, podcast, email list, whatever, but also a way of inviting kind of thought leaders, prospects, target accounts, whatever, and then another way of using it within your outreach, it just makes these kind of asks when you do need to do stuff that's building a brand, building your SEO, building your demand gen and all that kind of stuff, just makes it so much lower lift for yourself and for those target prospects. And yeah, having a podcast is time consuming, but at the end of the day, there's so many rewards off the back of it if you're willing to put in the time to set it up and keep it going, as well as the learnings off the back of it.
I think you made an excellent point. We think about it as a media arm. To those listening, that might sound really intimidating because that sounds like a really big thing. But I think what we're really getting at is as long as you're not just putting out product-focused content and you have something that's helpful, you said it could be a webinar. A lot of people are probably doing webinars. Maybe they're mostly product-focused. Can you start to integrate some kind of helpful content into it? And now all of a sudden, you have something to give people. So when you go and make a request, you have something to offer back.
Yeah, it's really, really useful. I mean, I'm saying this because just like you, George, I'm a founder. So I do a lot of marketing, but I do a lot of selling as well. If you've got useful content on specific topics that are relevant to what you're selling, really helps in the sales process. It's like the amount of times where, I don't know, we've sent out a pitch. Like we've had someone come inbound, we sent out a pitch, then a couple of days later after sending their plan of action, I'll just say, oh, you might like this podcast episode that quite literally drills down into the exact strategies we're going to be using for your process. And I'll send that like a day or two before we have our call to go through pricing and strategy. And like people have literally said the reason they've chosen to work with Breaking B2B is because I've shared the process in podcasts, videos, and examples. And so they knew exactly what we're going to be doing. So if you've got that stuff that you can create, not only is it good for folks to find you or build trust in you or to leverage to build demand, really good as sales enablement and actually to close deals.
And another great case for why sales and marketing need to be more aligned. I mean, imagine if your sales team listeners were able to, as quickly as Sam could, like think of this relevant marketing material that you had created that answers all these questions and objections before they next speak to that prospect. People love to learn in their own time. They want to do their evaluation in their own time. And so this kind of stuff that they can consume without you there is incredibly helpful. Okay, let's go into results. So, Sam, unbelievable. It's been, what did I say, 67 days or something. We haven't been on page one for very long. We actually got 8 deals coming from it, from 120 sessions on the website or so. One of them already closed one.
It's very good.
I mean, that's
way better than I expected.
Pretty fast.
Way better than I expected.
We said, I think maybe after our conversation and recording the first episode, we said let's hope this works out nicely, and it absolutely has. I mean, I've been blown away. I really saw the difference, Sam, from when we made it to the top 3 positions, and then even more so again once we hit that first one, which I thought was quite interesting. Maybe because, and I think I have the screenshot here for this particular search, it shows like the first result, which is us, and then it has like these snippets of all these courses underneath. So to scroll down to the second result, you've got to go pretty far.
That's true. Yeah, you've got the people also asked section underneath, then you've got a bit of a course section, which I'm guessing only shows because it's a course-based keyword. So like you say, it takes up, if you're not in your keyword, if you're not position 1, there's a lot of real estate you've then got to scroll past to get to organic 2. Plus, if some folks are doing ads, which they probably are sometimes to that keywords, then you've got to scroll past the ads to organic. But yeah, in your case, if you're on the YouTube video, you'll be able to see that George is taking up a nice bit of real estate because of that. So,
Sam, if our competitors do listen to this episode and they basically see what we had to do to rank number 1, to defend this position, is it just doing more of the same, more backlinks, doing all of that same stuff, but just more of it?
Yeah, I mean, we probably want to keep it up. I think just because you haven't had the organic number one spot for long, realistically, and you've already got 8 opportunities off the back of it and 1 closed deal. So I'd say it probably just makes sense for you to just keep chipping away at it. And what I mean by that is, i.e., if you're doing more podcast appearances, which you will be, as and when those folks publish those article pages on the topic, just ask them to link to that one again, to that focus page, and every now and then doing an article submission for relevant websites that have got a bit of authority, and probably just adding to this page every now and then with what you think is useful. So every now and then you might get a new question or FAQ that we can add to the FAQ carousel section at the bottom of the page that you might get on a sales call or prospecting call, or you might get a new objection on one of your trainings that you can leverage in there, or you might update the video that presents the course, or you might even do a process video perhaps in a few months' time that you can weave in halfway down the page. So just coming up with ideas that are relevant, that are actually from those prospects that you're speaking to, that they're going to find useful, and just chipping away at it, just so that page, it does a few things really. It gives folks more useful content when they land on the page, and secondly, it kind of signals to Google that it's not a redundant page and it's getting fresh content added to it every now and then.
So it's not a one and done. That's not what I wanted to hear, but that is the reality of almost everything in life, isn't it?
You've already got the fruits of your labor, George, within a few days, so you can't moan that much.
You're right. I can't complain at all. I'm absolutely stoked with the outcome. And look, I knew you were good, and you gave me a terrific process to follow. It was really, really actionable, and it's just amazing that it happened at this point in time. So, Sam, thank you so much again, and thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Enjoy the leads. And there you have it. There's the full step-by-step, so you can start outranking your competitors and start driving organic pipeline and revenue with SEO. But as you may have seen, there's quite a lot involved in the strategy, so perhaps you lack the resources, know-how, or expertise in-house, and maybe want a team to manage the full process and start driving results for you. If that is the case, why not grab a call with me over at breakingb2b.com, or hit a link in the description below. Or if you're not ready but want to grab my 90 days to revenue B2B SEO playbook, head over to breakingb2b.com and hit the newsletter tab to unlock it instantly. Or check out the Breaking B2B podcast, where we're sharing actionable SEO tips, strategies, and case studies, and interviews with SaaS marketing leaders each and every week. Thanks for watching, and I shall catch you on the next one. Cheers.